Hello, callsign Latrobe here, and I'll be reviewing another dogfight. This time, Glzzsqd will be facing off against the P-47D11 and his TA-152. Now first, we'll go over the strengths and weaknesses of both aircraft. Knowing what both aircraft are capable of can give you a big advantage in a fight. Both planes on military power are very similar in their top speeds and climb rate at most altitudes, but the D11 has a slight edge in climb rate. However, your TA-152 is superior in both categories when running on WEP. Your WEP also lasts for 10 minutes, while the P-47's WEP only lasts for 5 minutes, so you should exploit this advantage whenever possible. While both planes have superb diving abilities, I believe the 152 holds a slight edge over a D11, especially when you kick in the WEP. So you can use this to quickly gain some extra speed that you need, or open the distance between you and the 47 to get out of his gun range and reset the fight. The D11, however, I feel has a slight edge in a slow speed fight. The 152 is surprisingly good at slow speeds for a plane of its size and weight, but it is notorious for going into a tail stall when maneuvering at slow speeds. The D11, in my experience, handles just slightly better at slow speeds and does not stall as easily. The D11 is also fairly easy and quick to recover from stalls, while the 152 is more on the sluggish side, especially when in a tail stall. In terms of firepower, I'd have to say it's an even match. While your 152 carries two 20mm and a 30mm cannon that can bring down all fighters in one shot, the P-47 carries 8 50 caliber machine guns which have a higher rate of fire and are easier to aim. Both planes' gun packages can easily decimate any plane, so I would recommend avoiding any head-on shots. So looking at the film, we make first contact with both planes roughly co-out. Our 152 is cruising at a healthy 260 miles per hour, which is okay. You make a good choice using the 152's excellent diving abilities to build up some extra speed going into the merge. However, your merge is kind of weak. You do keep the horizontal separation from the jug and dive to start to create the vertical separation as well, and set yourself up for the first turn. But you could have made the vertical separation even larger by diving just a bit steeper for slightly longer. This would help build up some extra speed in the merge, especially if you use WEP. And then you can rocket into the vertical with that speed and force the jug to turn and climb for you. The major weakness of all jugs is they are not very good in the vertical fight. They just bleed too much speed. If it looks like the jug has the speed to catch you in the vertical, then you can easily roll over, dive, use your WEP to get some separation from the jug, and re-merge from a better position. Kingpin describes this situation very well. You shouldn't rely on set maneuvers in a fight. You must instead learn to read and react to what your opponent is doing or is capable of doing, and maneuver accordingly. It's okay to have a plan, but you must be prepared to alter that and do something different in a split second and instead do what the situation calls for. Essentially, you have to observe and act. What this means is you have to maneuver in response to what your opponent does, not what you want to do, because your opponent isn't going to let you fight your fight. He's going to try and force you to fight his fight. You also pull up for your lead turn just a bit too early. Speeds and closure rate can make it difficult to tell when to start the lead turn, and it takes a bit of practice to master. In this merge, you were well early on your turn and exposed your 6 to the P-47. Usually 700 to 400 yards is where you want to start your lead turn, depending on speeds and closure rate. You also appear to lose sight of the P-47. This is not good. You have to know where your opponent is at all times by either keeping an eye on them or keeping a mental note of where they are and where they are likely to be in the next few seconds. Now you go into a flat turn and drop your flaps to try and get inside the jug's turn. This is your next mistake, as the jug is already more than halfway through his turn. You don't have the speed to outclimb the jug, so what you should have done is dive to gain speed and separation from the jug and re-emerge from a better position. You do dive to build up speed before the jug can do any significant damage to you, but you're not watching the jug to see what he's doing. You have to be watching the jug to see if he's pulling for a shot, so you can change your maneuver to avoid him. Now here you intentionally put yourself into a tail stall to try and force the overshoot. This is not a good idea. Not only did you execute this move with the jug dead on your 6, which gives him an easy shot, But now you have thrown away all that speed that you built up in a dive, and you will now also lose a lot of altitude while you try to recover from the stall. What you could have done is maybe pull hard into the jug, chop throttle a bit, get inside his turn and increase the closure rate. The jug would overshoot, and then you could reverse into him using your superior whip if needed and go on the offensive. Or you could again chop throttle and pull a split S under the jug. The jug would build up more speed in a dive trying to get a shot at you and would overshoot, where you can again reverse into him and go on the offensive. Or the jug would have broke off, gone into a climb, and tried to reposition for a better attack. You could then use this time to extend and gain some altitude back to fight the jug on a more equal footing. Now as you float helplessly back to Earth trying to recover from the stall, the jug comes around and puts a good burst in you, giving you an oil leak. Honestly, it's kind of a miracle the jug hasn't done any more significant damage to you other than an oil leak. If the jug was more patient, he could have stayed high, keeping the altitude advantage, and you would have been in big trouble, as he could then slowly work you with boom and zoom tactics, making it very difficult for you to gain any altitude or speed. The jug, however, is flying very aggressively, trying to finish you off, and this will give you the chance you need to reverse him and go on the offensive. You recover from the stall before the jug can make another pass on you, and you do the right thing, diving to regain speed while at the same time looking around for the jug. You execute an absolutely perfect defensive turn on the jug here, turning up and into him to increase the closure rate and to get inside his turn. Then you execute a good reversal to try for a shot opportunity in the jug. You don't get the shot, but you do the right thing, not trying to force it. Instead, you're patient and positioned to stay inside the jug's turn and use flap and throttle control to cut the corner and try for another shot attempt. Now, if the jug could have held this climb and rolled over the top into you, things could have been bad. But the jug, like I said, is not very good in a climb. They bleed a lot of E, and it works against the jug pilot as he stalls and gives you a perfect opportunity to gain his 6, and you take full advantage of this. The jug stalls and you gain his 6 o'clock. You fly smart, not trying to force any shots, and instead keeping your positional advantage and letting the shot opportunities come to you. You're using some great flap and throttle control here to keep yourself from overshooting the jug, and some great stick control to keep yourself from wing stalling and losing your positional advantage. You're pulling the perfect rolling scissors here, keeping your lift vector behind the jug's 3 to 9 line, keeping your positional advantage of being behind him. Now, this is important here. Like I said at the start of the video, the jug is easier to handle at low speeds. You start to stall to the right, and this puts you inside the jug's turn instead of outside where you want to be. It's not a lot, but it's enough to throw you out of position. The jug sees this and instantly jumps on the opportunity by going vertical, stalling at the top to bring his nose down. And again, like I said, how the jug is easier and quicker to recover from stalls, he's going to use this to get a shot opportunity on you. The jug climbs, stalls out, and he comes down on you for a shot opportunity. You see this and you do the right thing, trying to get out of his guns, but like the merge, you just don't create enough of a separation, and you take a few more hits. When the jug stalls and comes down for a shot, there's a certain area where he can get his guns to. I like to call this the area of death, and you want to avoid this area. If you fly more towards the center of this area, then he'll have an easier time shooting you. If you fly towards the outer area, then he'll have a tougher time shooting you, but he can still hit you. What you want to do is turn and get well outside of this area so he can't shoot you, either by rolling to the right or rolling to the left. You make a good choice of rolling to the right so you can work with your engine torque to roll back into the jug instead of against your engine torque. However, you only position to the outer part of his cone of fire instead of getting out of it, and this is why you still took some hits. Again, you fly a perfect rolling scissors fight against the jug, positioned perfectly for his 6 o'clock. Once again, you're showing great flap and throttle control to keep on the outside of the rolling scissors here. Right here you have a little wing stall that almost throws you out of position, and again this almost costs you as the jug comes over the top for a shot. Fortunately, you do recover and reposition your rolling scissors to the outside of the jug's turn so he can't get a shot on you. You used some excellent throttle management here to drop inside the jug's turn, and all that patience has finally paid off as you are rewarded with a perfect shot opportunity and you're able to end the fight. Some of the things you did well were you seemed to be very good in a rolling scissors fight, knowing exactly where you want to put your lift vector to gain your opponent's 6 o'clock position. Your throttle work was also pretty good. You knew when to pull the throttle back to help you cut the corner and when to go full power again. Your gunnery skills also looked pretty good. Though we only got to see you take one shot, it was lined up very nicely and you didn't miss. You also seem to have a very good understanding of your plane. I, for one, am not so familiar with the 152 that I would have gotten into a turn and burn fight with a P47 D11, at least not willingly. Some things you can work on is your horizontal and vertical separations. While you do seem to know how important it is to create these problems for your opponent, you weren't creating enough separation and you paid the price each time. Your merge could also use some work. Again, your vertical separation was poor on the merge in this fight. Your lead turn was too early and you lost sight of your opponent, which leads me to the last bit that you could also work on: situational awareness. Situational awareness can be tough and overwhelming with a lot of planes in the area, but here are a few tips to help you improve it. Always be looking around. When in a fight, set an internal alarm clock to go off every 2 to 4 seconds. After that short time, check your 6. Have a quick look around, make sure there's no one else making an attack run on you. You can take your eyes off your opponent for a moment as long as you make a quick mental note of what direction they are flying and where they are likely to be in 2 to 4 seconds. If anyone wants me to review one of your fights, then you can send it to me through my email. Details are in the description. I hope this review was helpful to you, and I'll see you in game.